it was this older man bringing me into bad situations and telling me, because I would freak out, I would get so nervous. I would be like, well, what if we get arrested? And he would tell me, I think too young for him. But the truth is, and for anyone listening to this, you are not too young for them. They are too old for you. And that is the truth. You are too young for them in multiple ways, but that is not a problem of your own. They are too old for you. And it's not a bad thing. We all grow up on time, but there was no need for me to ever be in that situation. And I think that a lot of it did have to do with, feeling special by my therapist and, feeling parentified and always wanting that attention from older people because my peers didn't treat me the way I wanted to be treated. So I ran towards that, and when I often thought I was going to take solace in these people and be treated well and be taken care of, I was not. And a lot of the time it goes back to that predators seek prey. The reason why I truly stayed was forgetting all about what was going on in here, even though that's important and we can return to that later. My whole I would never give up on someone I love, I want to be there for you, was strengthened to the thousands because I got to see what he was really like. And now he's not like that anymore, but I know he's still in there. He's still there. And if I love him and I don't leave him and I'm there unconditionally, he can be who he was because I've seen it. I've seen how he is. I know he can do that again. I know he can come back to who he really is. I just need to give him a little bit more. I need to do more. Or we could go to treatment again. I was ready to do anything because I wasn't giving up on the mean, abusive soul who beat me and threw knives at me and threw his wallet at my mouth and called me fat while I was pregnant. I'm not giving up on him. I'm giving up on Travis. I'm giving up on the man who sang ukulele songs with me in the car for 14 weeks.
What's up, my people? It's your favorite Light M Boogie in this thing. Welcome to another amazing episode of the Can Be Broken podcast, where we are shining light on the darkness that is domestic violence and abuse. Season 2, what it do? Okay, I ain't gonna hold y'all. But if you've never been here before, welcome to the show. We are here to do 3 simple things: educate, empower, and encourage. We're here to educate anyone who has never been in abusive relationships, don't understand abusive relationships, the complexities, why people stay, how come they don't leave. We're gonna find out. We're here to encourage all of our survivors to stand up and share. We're here to empower all of our survivors to stand up and share your story without shame, fear, guilt, or judgment, because you are strong, you are powerful, and your voice deserves to be heard. And to anyone who is currently suffering in silence, listen. You are not alone. You are not crazy. Abuse is not normal. Your feelings are valid. And despite how it may look and feel in this very moment, there is always a way out, and we encourage you to safely seek support. Now let's go ahead, because we got to hop up in this thing so we can rise above these insecurities, release the burdens of shame and guilt, and revive our God-given power, purpose, and passion the confidence way, because we about to light it up. Y'all, as always, I have another amazing, beautiful, vibrant, vivacious, dare I say, light. But the rest of the world knows her as Holly. Welcome to the show. Pew, 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 pew. Girl, I swear I'm probably going to say this like every episode for the entire season 2, but you would think I would have a soundboard by now, and I don't. And that's okay. So, pew, 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 pew.
You are the soundboard. I love it.
I am the soundboard. You hear me? No other sound can top this. I'm just kidding. But yes, so, oh my gosh, it's such an amazing opportunity to have you on the show. We are super excited, and it is our privilege to be able to share this moment with you in time, to be able to go through what you've experienced with the hope that your experience can shine light on different people in their lives. Because, prior to me finding myself in an abusive relationship, I never thought I would be in an abusive relationship. And then you get in there, and then for me, so much shame, so much guilt, so much embarrassment that I was in there longer than I should have been. And so I love the fact that having these conversations with so many different people shows the world that what abuse can look like, because some people don't know that what they're going through is abuse, or the signs prior to the abuse coming. So thank you for your transparency from the jump, for allowing us into a portion of your life that shines light on what the society and the world tries to minimize and hide, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
It's our privilege, girl. It's our privilege. Anywho, so as I usually ask, for my first question, did you see yourself or growing up, or had you ever witnessed or experienced abuse personally, or saw it around you in the house, in the neighborhood, at school, or anything like that?
So I always say and truly believe that your first view of love and your first idea that forms in your head of how love should be is what you witness at home. And so I personally, no, I didn't see it in my household, but I saw it in family members. I saw it
Mhm.
at school. I went to a Catholic school for probably the first 10, 13 years of my life. And so from there, it was, I was always taught that love was something fearful. And it was something, control was a form of love. And I was shown differently with my amazing, beautiful mother. But in every other aspect of my life, I don't think I knew better.
That's wild. Wait a second. Wait a second. Okay, so your parents had a healthy relationship.
Yeah, to a point. I think they did.
And then, but other family members, with the other family members, was it something that you tied into correlation or connection with how things were going on at the school? Or were they kind of separate but equal in a sense of control and abuse, and it just wasn't the same as what you were experiencing at home?
So yes and no, because it was very similar. There was a lot of there was a big like religious upbringing, so everyone shared similar beliefs and similar actions and
Mhm.
similar beliefs in the way of what love should be and different stereotypes as like what a woman's place is. And I didn't know because I was younger, but I definitely do remember like watching American Ninja Warrior, and my family members, like my uncle would say stuff like, oh, like a woman could never do that or this. So looking back, yes, absolutely, what was going on with my family members was a very similar belief system and a similar outlook of what was happening in the schools.
So what was it at school that you saw that was it just the teaching that you can see in hindsight was like, that's not really what God wants for us? Or did you actually witness from either teachers or counsel or things like that what abuse could potentially be?
In very different ways, because I didn't know that it was abuse at the time. And that's one of the things about abuse. It manifests in very different ways, and often it can seem like someone is caring about you or someone is trying to help you or relating to you. It can make you feel special, honestly. It can make you feel special, but then you find out what's really going on, and it's kind of like a whirlwind. I mean, I think back to when I was young and I knew I was kind of different than a lot of the kids in my school. So the teachers, in a very wide range sense, I mean, they would yell at me. They would like scream and like kind of like tell me to shut up and stuff like that. I don't know if that's something that goes on in other schools, but it did happen in my school. And so I mean, I thought that that was like, or tell me I was annoying. I thought that was something that teachers do, or when you're out of place and you're not acting the way that someone wants you to, that is how people react. That is how people tell you what you should or shouldn't be doing. I know a lot better now.
That's crazy. As a recent educator and just being around, I have friends who are educators. And I mean, even going to school, the school that I grew up in, I didn't experience that from a teacher, but I'm not going to say that it never happened. I do know that you, as a teacher, you can be tested and tempted, but also as the authority and as the example that we're supposed to be, we're supposed to have better self-control over what we allow to come out of our mouths.
Of
That's
course.
And I can see, I can look back there. We had one specific guy in my grade. Oh my gosh. To me, he was hilarious because he was so smart that he was kind of bored, so he wasn't being stimulated in class because if he wanted to, he could have all A's easily. And naturally, when that type of person is introduced into a setting of people who actually need education, they tend to not necessarily with malice intent disrupt the class, but there's one particular guy who always was my favorite, and he could really get under our teacher's skin. And I can imagine it's only so much you can take before you crash out.
Yes.
However, when you sign up for this job, I feel like almost like teachers ought to take an oath, like doctors take an oath, because we have people's futures in our hands, how they are going to see the world based off of how their current world is treating them. And so if you're growing up and you're being taught to respect your teachers, you're being taught to respect authority, and your teacher shows you that as the authority, it's okay for me to put you in your place by being verbally abusive and harsh and yelling and screaming. What do we expect you to do when you go out into the world? Like, it saddens me that some people get the job and it's just a job, and we forget how much of an impact that one person can have on so many lives. And
Absolutely.
I don't I hate that. I hate that for you and all the students who experience that, because I'm here to learn and I'm asking questions, or I don't learn the way that you want to teach. That's another thing,
Yeah.
We have to be willing to be challenged. And a lot of times people go to school and they learn a certain way and they don't want to be challenged on how they can educate other people. And so for you to see that for the first 10 to 13 years of your life, and your mom being the only light of this is how it could be, I imagine that she still had a heavy weight, but at the same time she's a unicorn in your world at that point.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I find that because of what I went through, and there was very little knowledge, I believe, especially in the religious schools, at least that I experienced. There was very little knowledge of trauma-informed care. So instead of what happened to you, it was more like, what is wrong with you? Instead of why might she be acting this way, it was you're acting this way because of X, Y, and Z, or there's something wrong with you, or you are the problem, and instead of the behavior being the problem. And so that was an experience, and actually what kind of led me into a deeper role of, I guess, so when you internalize it and stuff, you never want anyone else to feel that way. And so you kind of become parentified in a sense, and you try to take on the role of, instead of talking, listening and acting older than you are so you can help people around you and no longer be a target. And it's funny how that manifested the way it did because I ended up speaking with the school counselor at my school, and I had no clue at the time, but I ended up basically being her therapist. And that was something very interesting because it goes back into the abusive situations because I thought I was the coolest girl in the world. My therapist is venting to me and talking to me. I am 12, 13, and she's talking about her boyfriends and how they go out to the bar and how, like, her dad's an alcoholic. Like, wow, like, she must really trust me. There must be something really special about me. And now I look at it and I'm like, that was another form of, um, I would say at least, you know, at least I would say
Neglect.
abuse. Yeah, neglect or abuse.
That's the what I imagine the problem with that is, and I'm no therapist, so this is just from my interpretation. You're this 12 or 13-year-old girl, and you have an adult who's confiding, or so you think she's confiding in you. Really, she's trauma dumping
Oh, yeah.
because she doesn't, I can't say she didn't go to therapy, but it doesn't sound like she went to therapy. So she's trauma dumping on you. And now unknowingly planting seeds into what you can expect from a relationship, what you expect a relationship looks like. Like, oh, so we go to the bar. Like you too young to be hearing this information.
Yeah.
Way too young. Her dad's an alcoholic. Okay, so I get that exposure is one thing, but that's not the setting nor the age. If you could help it to be exposing, I mean, if you're not exposed to it at home, God dog it, can we at least try our best not to expose people outside of our home to it?
Yeah.
So that's that's so sad and disheartening because she's just is just I'm visualizing just volcanic lava just spewing out of her mouth and settling in pieces of your brain that you're going to tap into later in life, and you don't realize that they're hanging out there for you to tap into when that could have been avoided.
Yeah, absolutely. And I never looked at it that way, but that is absolutely what happened. And even just the experience of, well, I can no longer be a target. I'm not being yelled at if I'm someone that other people can talk to. I'm no longer alienated or treated poorly if I'm someone that older people can talk to. If I can be a therapist to older people, I'm doing pretty well in life, is what I kind of took from that situation. I thought it was so cool, but I realized later, because I was talking to my friend's mom about it, and she was like, that's not really okay. Like, that's not what we do. That's not what therapists are for. Like, I didn't know at the time, but knowing now, it absolutely did turn into that, lava that kind of solidified and did definitely affect my older life.
And the fact that at your age you're now going from being able to open as the flower that you're created to be, to trying to perform just to avoid someone else's inability to control themselves. And you're not only trying to perform, like, it's different when you're performing at a peer level, but when you're performing at an authoritative level, the pressure that you must have felt, and even though you did feel like, wow, somebody like an adult actually is confiding in me, you don't know the damage that is causing. But for you to feel the pressure of going to school and school itself, the pressure then of the layer of being able to fit in with the peers, then the pressure of how do I evolve and elevate myself in a way to that the people who are above me no longer talk to me like I'm nothing.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
And then have the audacity to get good grades.
Yeah.
And you're not even a teenager yet. So you're dealing with your own prepubescent hormones? Oh my gosh. That sucks. And the crazy thing about it is it sucks because this isn't even physical abuse, but the mental damage that's happening that you're so unaware of, that
Yeah.
they have to have some kind of sense of. Like, you got to have, you have to have some kind of sense that you're damaging a child when you're speaking to them a certain way.
Yeah.
But they're taking the responsibility off of themselves to be able to have self-control and placing the blame on the kids who are triggering their inability to have self-control.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's like if you want a child to be emotionally regulated, which I was not for a number of reasons, and then you respond with an act of emotional unregulation, you're not really giving them the best example. And if I were to act in a similar way, or even, 5 lines under what the teacher would do, it would be a catastrophe. And
Mhm.
so I became, riddled with the idea that in order to be loved, in order to be useful, and in order to be treated correctly, I had to act a certain way. And um, it did not give me the idea that love is something that's supposed to be easy. And I think it more so gave me the idea that love was something that had to be chased or proved that you're worthy of.
Dang it.
Yeah.
So it raises the question, like, would that have been delayed in your life? The feeling of needing to prove your value to receive the love that you were born to deserve. Would that have been delayed in life or altogether omitted because you wouldn't have been chasing that illusion? Oh my God. At 12, this is what you're thinking.
Yeah, it was a hard time because your mind and your body will try to do everything it can to regulate that unregulated nervous system. And the more unregulated it gets, it goes, uh-oh, something's wrong here. And so I started having panic attacks. I started, feeling sick all the time. And I didn't know until recently that those frequent stomach aches were anxiety and wanting to miss school and getting physically sick to the point where I wouldn't go to school was my body responding to what was going on in my mind and my nervous system.
Yep. And trying to protect you
Yeah.
because you're so, you're overly stimulated like every minute you're on campus because your brain is trying to, it's trying to decipher what's safe and what's not safe in the one of the one places that's supposed to be safe for kids. Dang, that sucks. So when you leave, you're at that school to middle school or the beginning of middle school, and then you leave and you go to a different school, another Catholic school, public school.
So I was at that school until 8th grade. And then at high school, I went to another Catholic school. And then I was actually there until my senior year. I transferred to a different school, and that school was a better experience for me. They were all super loving and kind there, but by that point, and I've had a lot of almost every relationship I've been in until my marriage has been, I'd say, unhealthy in a kind, and a lot of that had to do with my image of how love should be and what I was willing to put up with and what I did think was normal versus what I didn't. And so I do believe that last school had a lot of really good things to offer to me, and there were really good things that happened there. But by that point, a lot of the damage was done. And I will say, when it comes to my family life, I would say that my father was a very avoidant attacher. And so if I got a 98, it would be, why didn't you get a 100? There wasn't a lot of I'm proud of yous, and he has shown his love for me in so many different ways now. But as a child, you don't know that. So when you have one parent who's very loving and accepting, and one parent who points out your flaws as a way to connect with you, or in a sense that they think they're trying to help you,
Mm-hmm.
but they're really hurting you, it's kind of a hard mesh. And so I do believe that even though the school experience did push me towards that idea of chasing love, I can't say that that didn't bloom in my house
Yeah.
because I it did to a point. And
Mm-hmm.
it was what my dad experienced. It was a multi-generational trauma for my dad having two avoidant absent parents and doing his best to be present. Every theater show, every game, every school play, he was there. But I could count on my fingers the amount of times he'd say he was proud of me.
Oh my gosh. You're, that's so heavy. You're challenging me in this conversation to be a better parent. Mine are 5, 4, and 4. And I see, even now where I have to work on some things because I don't want to have expectations of them that I'm not supposed to have. But also, I do want to be encouraging. Not only are you challenging me as a parent, you're challenging me as a teacher too, because I don't want to give off I don't want people to feel like they have to perform to my standards for them to feel love. Like there was last week, our high school boys team, they went to the Final Four in basketball. They didn't make it to the last round. And so I come back the next week and I tell one of the freshmen, I was like, I'm so proud of you. He's like, for what? We didn't win. And so, and I, on the one hand, from an athletic standpoint, I get it. You had a goal and your heart's desire was to actually win the tournament. I get it. But on the other hand, it was actually two different boys. On the other hand, I'm like, but you made it to the Final Four. And I'm
Yeah.
hoping that I can be one of the voices, if there's not another voice, that's saying, if you know you gave it your all and you didn't win this time, it just wasn't your time, and that's okay. You can still be proud of what you accomplished. Then I have an eighth grader who's on the same team, but he didn't get playing time because he's not even in high school yet. And I
Yeah.
told him, I'm like, I'm so proud of you. He's like, why I didn't even play? I said, but you're part of the team. I was like, the people who played had to practice against somebody. And I could see his mind shifting as I'm having this conversation with him. He's like, oh, okay. It's not necessarily all about whether or not I'm putting points on the board, but am I contributing what I can in the moment that I can? And so just hearing this is just validation that just for me to be more mindful as a parent and a teacher in how I'm expressing, like I want the best for them, but am I making sure that I'm expressing in a way that's a healthy, loving way to receive it? Or is it coming down like I'll never be good enough? And I don't want that. I don't want that feeling to be the result of me trying to show you that I'm proud of you, that I love you, that you're doing a good job, but you could do a little better. So that's important. I'm sorry I got all off,
No, not at
but
all.
that was so important to me to hear that your dad was like, and like you said, it's generational. And that's why I love having these conversations, because these conversations aren't had. And when they're not had, the generational continues. It doesn't, even if it's not physically abusive, just the bar, like if I'm constantly feeling like I'll never be good enough, that's still damaging. That's
Yeah.
still damaging.
No, it is. And it happens in a lot of ways because for my dad, no one ever, I mean, I heard a story about how the only thing he wanted in the world was for his dad to come to his football game, and he was so disheartened when he didn't. So for my dad, he did everything he could to make sure he was there for all of those events. And for that, I'm so grateful. And now I can understand that he tried with everything he knew how to be a present parent. And he was present, but he wasn't active in the sense of emotions and validating me and
Mhm.
giving me that approval I needed and allowing me to grow in my authenticity. And so
Yes.
that's not a fault of his own. That is a fault of generations before that
Mhm.
failed him. And
Mhm.
as a parent myself, I do everything I can to make sure that my son has an environment where he can blossom and grow and create his own identity and know that he's appreciated and he's loved, and learning what way he needs to be loved. For me,
Yes.
words of affirmation and knowing that, I'm appreciated. But for every person has their own unique way.
Mhm.
So, not doing unto him what I wanted as a child, but doing unto him what he needs as his own individual child.
Girl, you gonna make me shout. Oh my gosh, that is so real, because in the Bible, they say the golden rule is treat others the way you want to be. I don't know if that's in the Bible, but the golden rule that I've heard is to treat others the way you want to be treated. I'm like, for centuries, this is what we're telling people, and it's not right.
No, no, it's
Because
not.
the way I need you to love me is not the way, like Holly needs love a certain way, and I need love a certain way. And if I love you the way I need to be loved, I'm doing you a disservice.
Yes.
I realized this several years ago when I first came across the love languages, the five love languages book, and I read it. And I'm like, you know, past college at this point, and I have a best friend that I met in college, and I would show her love. I'm realizing this later. I would show her love the way I would want to receive it. So, like, I would do special things for her that I'm like, ooh, I would like this. So I know what she would like this. And it's like, she's an acts of service type of person. She doesn't want necessarily customized gifts and things like that. And we still have this bond, and we respect each other. I get on her nerves, she gets on my nerves. But being able to loving someone is taking the time and the intention to learn them and learn how they need you to love them. And we don't do that generally as a society.
No.
If it's not about what I can get out of it, it's then, well, I'm doing good because I know I would like this. So why wouldn't you like this? There was this interview I saw of Will Smith and Jada Pinkett Smith several years ago. And he had thrown her this huge, amazing birthday party, invited all of these people, and basically, like, he was just putting on this extravagant show. And he's like, from his point of view, he's just begging, almost in the sense of a puppy, just begging for her to be like, wow, you did. He's looking for the affirmation of, you did so good, this is amazing. From her point of view, It was, you did all this for you because this is not what I want. And like in the middle of the party, she ends up leaving and going upstairs and just like, she's like, y'all have that because this isn't, because as a mom, you can imagine you're so tired already. And then now, even though it looks like you're doing something for me, I'm having to entertain all of these people, which is exhausting. And so I just find it fascinating and absolutely beautiful that you have the wherewithal to see what a lot of people miss. And it's about finding a way to love people the way that they want and need to be loved, not the way that we want and need to be loved, or we want to love them.
Absolutely.
This is interesting. This is a good conversation.
I know.
I loved it. I'm like, we ain't even got to the like the other side of the abuse yet. But this is,
Yeah,
I think the beauty of this conversation is that whoever comes across it might not even need to hear the rest of this. They might have just needed this segment of you saying, as a mother, I want my child to blossom the way that he was supposed to blossom. And I want to do everything to support it and nurture it as I keep my hands off of it, as to not taint the potential that it could become. That's good.
absolutely. And but I think the thing is, it does tie into a lot of everything because if these, you know, key needs and these key ideas were met at an earlier point in life, I think a
Yeah,
lot of the other side could have been avoided.
absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And it's not just a personal or a one-on-one or um there's so many layers to it. It's a
Yes,
societal issue. It's not just a generational issue or a familial issue. It's a societal issue because these are things that have gone on that are either socially acceptable or not socially acceptable.
yeah. All of that. Family, generation, society, religious.
Yes,
It's all of that. But we're figuring it out.
absolutely.
We're
And I
figuring
think
it out.
having conversations like this really does bridge the gap and figuring out, what happened and why we think what happened may have happened, what could have made it go differently, and moving forward. And, having those reflective moments like that makes me think this is how I could,
Mm-hmm.
instill this better into my life. And that's
Yes,
the beauty of connecting. And, you know, that's the beauty of surviving and being a survivor, having these moments and making not only your life better, but other people's lives better as well.
absolutely. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I love it all. So you mentioned you had a good experience your senior year, but the damage was already done up until that year. And so even it overshadowed, I think, what you had the potential of being able to hold on to. And then you said you had several relationships. So when you graduated high school, you're now getting into relationships that you describe as unhealthy, maybe toxic. Like, what, since you're out of it and you see this now, I don't know what level we're on yet, but looking back, what do you describe as being unhealthy? Because there's going to be somebody who hears this and they're thinking what they're in is normal because we see it all the time. It's pushed in our face on reality TV and all of the things, but it's actually unhealthy. So, what are the things that you experienced in that moment, either in high school or right after high school, in your timeline of your life that you were like, you know what, that actually wasn't healthy traits or characteristics?
So I had at that point in my life, one of the first major relationships in my life was not a relationship. It was a system of abuse. It was an older guy who I knew, and he wasn't that much older than me. And it was still bad. It still was not okay whatsoever. He was too old because I was 16 and I believe he was 19, 18 or
Mm.
19. At that point, I believe that's too old because we were functioning on two different levels. He saw me as someone who was a deep thinker and as someone who like to learn more. And I always say, and I will say this every day of my life, predators seek prey. Predators seek prey. And so that is exactly what he did. And he saw me as a younger, naive girl. He told me I was special, that he knew I was different from the people around me, and he could show me a different way. He had a drug addiction. I knew what it felt like to be lonely and given up on or felt not appreciated. And when I love people, that's the worst thing I can ever imagine for them. So I did everything I could to avoid that. And that was the obvious unhealthy. It got bad. I knew it probably went on for close to a year, and I told a trusted family member, and that was the end of it. Um, that was it. And no more contact. The whole year of those experiences was him taking my money and threatening me if I didn't give it to him. The obvious unhealthy. So when you're in the seventh layer of hell, the fourth layer doesn't seem too bad, which is the, you know, unobvious, unhealthy. And so where I was after that wasn't as obvious. I got into a relationship with someone who genuinely did love me and care about me, but they weren't in a place where they could be emotionally stable. They had been, I guess, cheated on in the past. And so this is still young amateur relationships, I would say. It
Hmm.
lasted about a year, 2 years, and there was a lot of stonewalling. There was a lot of, if I answered a call from someone I didn't know, storming out of my friend's house and acting like I did something very wrong. There was a lot of things that I didn't seem to be abusive, and I still struggle with looking at it as abusive, but I realize it was them trying to control my mood, which I do feel is abusive because in every way, shape, and form, you are looking at what someone is doing, and if it's not up to their standard, your standard, not caring about that own individual person and what they do or their authenticity and how they work, thinking only about yourself and, well, I don't like this, so I'm going to stop them from doing that. I think that's very controlling. You know, not talking to me for hours, um, deciding, what I do is just not what they want me to do anymore. Very controlling. But I didn't see it as bad. It was just in the end where my friends were like, this isn't the way things should be. This isn't the way people are supposed to act with one another. This isn't how love is supposed to be. And I was like, you know what? I'm tired. I can't do this anymore. At that point, I had just left college during COVID and I was experiencing a new form of freedom and being on my own, um, leaving my house. And so that was a different chapter of my life, getting out of the most long relationship I've ever been in. At that point, it was only like a year and a half, 2 years. But from there, I things definitely took a turn for the worse before they took a turn for the better.
So these two experiences, the first one, I'm glad that you highlighted y'all's age in the sense of it's only 3 years. But when you're that age and you're 16, you don't understand how far those 3 years are apart. So I was talking to an 8th grader the other week, and she opened up to me about being in love, because, you have your emotions. I loved him. I loved him. But it was with a 10th grader. And so I was trying to express to her in a way of, I completely understand your feelings, but here's the problem with it. Not that you necessarily have the problem, but anytime someone who's older than you is drawn to you and they're older, that's a flag that they have a problem. I'm like, depending on the phase of life you're in. Now, if you're 45 and 49, like y'all have lived enough and usually experienced enough to know, like, we're here kind of the same. But when you're a sophomore in high school versus a middle schooler, those are two different levels of experience. And so with you being 16 and him being 19, like, you're a sophomore and he's in college essentially. And young girls especially only see the attraction, the wow, like you feel special because someone's older is into you,
Yes.
and you see the age as it's not a big deal. But in this phase of life, it is a big deal because his level of maturity with life experiences is usually vastly different than your level of maturity with your life experiences. And so I'm glad that you mentioned that he was older, but not a lot older. But in the experience world, he was clearly way older
Oh,
for him
yeah.
to be, like, did you know when y'all met? How did y'all meet, first of all? What drew you to him?
I knew his brother. I
Okay.
was friends with his brother, and we would, go to the house and hang out, and he would be there, and he intrigued me. He was different.
Yep.
I always felt different. Growing up and going to school and knowing there were some obvious differences, between me and the people around me in school and having the teachers made that be known. I
Mm,
When I felt like he was different, it intrigued me. It was something new. It was something,
yeah.
what is this? I've never met anyone like this before. Like, that's kind of cool. I didn't know what he was going through, but
Mhm.
it was it was different. Meeting him and seeing how he acted, it was different than most of the people I knew in my life. I did not know at the time that he was doing drugs, but later on, when I did find out, and it took a while for him to feel comfortable telling me that, but
Mhm.
it made me so nervous. I was so worried all the time. I hated it. I never wanted him to do it. He would take all my money. He would make me you know, go with him actually. He would take me down there, and that is why I want to go back to the age. He would take me down there to pick up. He would say ideas about me standing out in the corner in my schoolgirl uniform. Um, he to help him get money, and he would be like, "Well, all the girls that I knew did stuff like that. You're just a little prudish, or you're just a little, you're so sheltered, you're so that." But in reality, I was just so 16. That's all.
And that right there is a vivid image of the danger that most girls who are unassuming, like, you can mature faster than some other girls at your age, but at the end of the day, you don't understand how much manipulation is out there. And you are really unassuming that why would this person do anything, malicious to me when I've done nothing to them? You're And if you I'm so glad that you spoke with a family member, one. Two, that you actually listened to the family member, because this could be a totally different conversation. Because he's this for girls who don't understand right now, this is grooming. And it's planting little seeds in your head that you don't realize are seeds until you become desensitized to the reality of what's actually being said and told to you and what's actually happening or about to happen. So when you would go over to his house, is his brother your age? Y'all like the same age and the same grade?
Yes. Yes.
I just, there's so much that can be said about this because your innocence of being able to hang out with a teenager just as friends to only then be in a place, and it's not to push the narrative that you can't trust anybody, but it's to highlight the fact that you should be on high alert as a young girl when you're in the presence of older males and sometimes females. But when you're in the presence of someone who is out of high school and you're still in high school, or someone who's well off into high school and you're still in middle school, or someone who's well out of college and you're still in college, that's a very sensitive space to be in. And you can easily end up manipulated into a lifestyle that you never wanted for yourself. Because, of course, he would be uncomfortable telling you about the drugs for a while. Like, so he was already on drugs when y'all met, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah.
But to go as far as taking you with him and inciting the fear, like anytime that you're uncomfortable, young ladies or grown ladies, anytime your body is saying, I'm uncomfortable about this situation or this person, just be done. Like, don't question, well, maybe that was just one time. It's not. It's never just one time unless you walk away. Your body is literally telling you every single time you feel uncomfortable getting to know someone that you have no business getting to know that person.
And I actually put a lot of blame. So for the next, I would say I was 16. I was 16 turning 17 for the next until I was 23 and met my husband. Chasing those butterflies led me into every bad relationship I'd been in, and they were butterflies. And so I will say, those butterflies you feel aren't always a good thing. It can
Mm-hmm.
often be your nervous system telling you that something is wrong. But if you are used to chaos being your
Mm-hmm.
baseline, it will feel like home. It will feel exciting and invigorating, but that's not always a good thing. It takes a while for you to learn and know what peace feels like
Mm-hmm.
after not experiencing peace. And even on the flip side, those butterflies, it might feel exciting experiencing something different, feeling like you're attractive to an older guy or someone, has their eyesight on you and you must be really special to be able to get his attention as young as you are. And you get those butterflies. It's it feels like excitement, but it's really your nerves because it's not, it is new, it is different, and it is something to be nervous about. And your brain may mask it and say, oh, well, I'm excited, but that's not always the case. And it
Mm-hmm.
might feel like excitement, but it takes a little bit more of deep insight to see what's really going on and to
Yes.
realize because those butterflies don't always come and feel good. A lot of the time you'll get them and you'll feel that, pit in your stomach or that nervous sense in your stomach and you think it's a good thing, but it's not.
Uh, It is not. Anyone who pressures you to do any, so no means no. And it's not just about sex. Anytime that you're pressured into doing something that you would not have voluntarily just come up to do by yourself without the influence of someone is a sign that you don't need to be doing it.
Absolutely.
Period. Like if you're hesitant and you're like, no, I don't really like that, and then there's coaxing involved, they're showing you exactly who they are. It's the manipulation on the surface level, and it just gets more manipulative and more dangerous depending on the people that are dealing and handling you. So awesome that you got out. Awesome that, oh my gosh, you're 16 and he's trying to pimp you out so he can get some drugs. It ain't got nothing to do with you.
No, I never touched drugs. I mean, I was terrified that if I smoked weed, I would get drug tested at home. My
Yeah.
parents might smell it and drug test me. Like I was terrified, and actually that did end up happening because they and I wasn't. Or
Mhm.
well, yes, I was smoking weed at the time. And I so that was when I first started smoking weed, and he brought me down to pick up drugs with him. My dad tracked my phone and
Mm.
saw the Find My iPhone, said that I was in basically, we'll just say a heroin capital of the East
Wow.
Coast where people do not go. You do not go there unless you are going to get drugs. And I will repeat, no one's going there for vacation. No one's going there to say hi to a friend. You don't go
Yeah.
there unless you're going to get drugs. My dad knew that, and so he freaked out. I said every lie under the book. I told him he could drug test me. At that point, once he saw it was only weed, he stopped freaking out because he thought it was something way worse.
Yeah.
And the whole time it had nothing to do with me. It was this older man bringing me into bad situations and telling me because I would freak out, I would get so nervous. I would be like, well, what if we get arrested? And he would tell me, I think too young for him. But the truth is, and for anyone listening to this, you are not too young for them. They are too old for you. And that is the truth. You are too young for them in multiple ways, but that is not a problem of your own. They are too old for you. And it's not a bad thing. We all grow up on time, but there was no need for me to ever be in that situation. And I think that a lot of it did have to do with, feeling special by my therapist and, feeling parentified and always wanting that attention from older people because my peers didn't treat me the way I wanted to be treated. So I I ran towards that, and when I often thought I was going to take solace in these people and be treated well and you know, be taken care of, I was not. And a lot of the time it goes back to that predators seek prey. They saw what I was going through and they took advantage of it. And truth be told, I mean, even in the, you know, unobvious unhealthy, I was still not, I wasn't being treated great, but it all of those patterns all loop back into every single one of them. And even in that was the best of the worst situations. And they gradually, after that, got worse and worse
Yeah.
because what I was chasing and what I was chasing and what I was running from had to do a lot with what they were, you know, what they were chasing after me for. There
Yeah.
was a lot of lacking of self-approval and not feeling like I was worthy on my own. Like
Hmm.
I always needed to be in a relationship.
Yeah.
And each time, the person treated me worse and worse. And so, in my opinion, it was more and more of a, well, if I could just get them to love me, or if I could just get them to appreciate me, or see
Hmm.
how worthy I am, then it'll be okay. And I know I can do it. And I thought that was what love was. I I didn't really, I saw a problem with it, but I didn't see a problem with it. And so I like to say I dated the same person
Mhm.
probably 5 different times
Yeah.
because they all, in a sense, were with different quirks about them in different ways and different things, and some were way worse than others, but it was the same thing happening time after time.
To piggyback off what you said about you not being the problem because of your age, it's never, never say never. It's usually, again, depending on the time frame of the relationships, it's always a bad sign when someone older is interested in you. One, it shows that they don't have what they need to be able to attract people their own age. And usually when we're dealing with those type of people who are dealing with the younger kids, they're not seeing that part of the problem. They're just seeing the attention. They're just seeing the validation or the fake validation or the fake approval or the you should be able to be who you want to be. You should be able to do what you want to do. You shouldn't have to listen to people tell you what to blah 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 blah. But it's always going to end with them being the same people that are going to be telling you what you can and cannot do and how you should and shouldn't do things. I mean, like you said, you had in the next relationship, you've got a guy who's, not necessarily on this on the surface, he doesn't look controlling, but he's very manipulative. And that is we tend to not want to call abuse because abuse sounds so brutal. Like it sounds so invasive and so harsh and so hard. But manipulation is abuse of your emotions and your mental capacity and your mental state. So for him to act out in the way that he was acting out in order to control the narrative of how you respond or how you perceive your feelings based off of his actions, like all of that is abusive. I should not be acting a certain way to make you not feel what you feel. I should be able to respect what you feel, figure out why you feel it, and if I can do anything to help fix that feeling or address it so that we can move forward, then that's what a healthy relationship is. If I can't do that and you don't feel comfortable enough to tell me, then where are we going? Where are we going? So I wanted to jump on that relationship for a hot second because you got all the good things going in this relationship, whoever's listening. But there's just that one thing where they're overreacting or they're storming out or they're making a big deal about stuff. That's not a big deal. That is a big deal. You will go insane trying to figure out how to be good enough for a person who's constantly trying to make you feel like you're not good enough.
Absolutely.
Been there, done that. So, um, with everything that you said, one of the key things that I hope someone takes away is validation comes from within. Like, we shouldn't be seeking a validation from any single other soul on this planet. Not our parents, not our grandparents, not our teachers, not our principals, not our pastors, not our friends. If we can learn to validate ourselves and approve ourselves, then the people that we're supposed to be around will be drawn to us for being who we are created to be, and they'll accept us as that and not try to change. Because there's a lot of people out here just trying to change you to fit. And you want to know what's crazy now that I think about it? So many people try to change you to fit what they want you to be in their life. And even if you make those changes, you'll never fit what they want you to be because they don't even know what they want. Because they don't approve them. Like they're in a twisted way seeking validation and approval too. Abusers don't know how to love because they don't love themselves.
Absolutely. And that was what it was because the person who I was with after that first, really bad relationship, he was a good guy. He's a great friend, but he was a bad partner because he didn't love himself. And he tried time and time again to be better. But he couldn't because he didn't know what he needed to do. He didn't know what was going on. He had such low self-esteem that he always needed there to be a problem because he needed that attention. He always needed me to be, I'm so sorry, my poor baby, I'm so sorry, in a state of crisis. So the attention could be off of him and what he didn't like about himself. And so, and his insecurities, he felt like he wasn't good enough for me. Even though he was all that I wanted at the time, he felt like he wasn't good enough for me. And that's how that manifested into our relationship. It teared it apart. Great friend, awesome person to talk to, terrible partner. And he has admitted it and he feels absolutely terrible about it. And he'll admit it was abusive. It was absolutely abusive. And he did the therapy and the work that he needed to look inside and be like, maybe I shouldn't be in a relationship. Maybe I need to work on myself and see what I need to do. And that's the difference because a lot of the time, people don't want to do that. They don't want to do the work and they don't want to work on themselves and they don't care how they're hurting you. And even if you tell them, they'll either refuse to acknowledge it or they'll ignore it.
You can talk to him till you black and blue in the face. That's major that he is, that he came to that realization that I do want to work on myself so that, I mean, I am the problem.
Yeah.
And if we're being honest, in most, if not all situations, we are all the problem because we haven't been taught from a young age how to love ourselves unconditionally, how to appreciate respect. We want that appreciation, that validation, that approval, that respect, the security. We want it from someone else. We're not being taught to just show up as this from a young age and then be willing to work on the hardest part, which is whatever trauma that you faced in your life. You've got to face it and grow from it and learn how to heal from it so that one, you're not causing anyone else trauma, but you can acknowledge and recognize trauma when it's coming and presenting itself to you as something other than trauma. Blessed assurance. Somebody about to get a real good therapy session off this off this conversation. Gosh, this is so good. This is so good. So now you're 19, 20, you said 20, you're 20, you're out of college now, right? Like
Yeah,
not
so
now, but
19.
in your story. Okay. So
So
you're out of college.
19.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and to be honest, it was all one, one bad relationship after the other. The one, and I will say there were two, and there were two shortly after the other at that point, and they, kind of embodied the same thing. They liked me and they made me feel good about myself, but they weren't there to love me the way that I needed to be loved. Um, and they weren't major relationships in my life. One of them, was kind of short, like a month, 2 months. I found out from friends that, he didn't have a good reputation, apparently. He, had talked to my friend in a weird way that made her very uncomfortable. And so I'll leave it at that. I broke up with him. And I was like, I'm not going to go for this. I'm so sorry. Goodbye. And from there, I ended up, it was just chasing one bad love after the other.
Mhm.
Um, I ended up in another relationship with an older man. I was 19 this time. He was 35. And he was a pastor, and he promised me the world to take me around the country. And the thing is, he did. He took me around the country, and I had the best road trip of my life. And he loved me. He loved me. I'm sure he loved me, but not in the way that love is supposed to be. There was a lot of anger behind that love. And the truth is, and I'm still, it's kind of hard for me to talk about this because they were all so nice to me, but it was a cult. I was in a cult and I didn't realize I was in a cult. It was an extremely, it was an extremely deceptive cult that hid behind the image of love and acceptance for everyone and quickly spiraled into this completely everything I don't stand for cult. It was a very, I'll say, very right-wing cult. And when I found out what was really going on, I left. I actually flew across the country because at that point in my life, after we went on our road trip, which was all disguised in this image of Jesus loves everyone how they are. Everyone needs to go to Jesus because he loves them, and everyone needs to go to the good news that Jesus is just love. Jesus is love. And that's what I truly believed. It was not that. It started getting, as soon as we got back from our road trip, there were different ideals going out that the person that I was dating may be of the same lineage as Jesus and he's the next prophet. I got scared. I left. It was another example of looking for that guidance and acceptance and, wanting to be appreciated and wanting to feel heard by an older person and looking for that love and, acceptance that my dad didn't show me, even though he wanted to. Terrible decision. I knew him for like 3 weeks before I left and went on the road trip. Um, I
Wait a second. Wait, Holly, wait. I'm holding this in, but I have to know, like, how did y'all meet?
He was my neighbor. He was my neighbor. He had turkeys. I saw the turkeys. I wanted to pet them.
How
And
long were y'all neighbors before you actually met as, like, introduce yourselves?
probably most of my life, which means he's probably seen me running around there as a kid and stuff. Because I don't know if he did, but um and here's what I will say. When I personally think that 18 is too young, I do not think your brain is fully developed at 18. Science
It's
says
not.
it's not, and I agree. Um, I barely think my brain is developed at 25, but it's a lot more, I can see things for a lot more of what they are. 35 and 19 was not a good idea. That was not okay. That was not okay on his part either. He wanted to, show me the ropes. I seemed so intelligent. I seemed so, deep thinking, and he loved that. But it's not my fault that I talked older than I did or acted older than I did. It's more so his fault for not seeing the situation as it is, because you can act as old as you want, but the truth is, I was 19, and that is what that is. I was deceived most of the relationship. I had problems, speaking up, and he took advantage of me in that sense. And I won't go into it, but that's what it was. And I'm not just going to say person after person took advantage of me because the truth is I did put myself in very risky, very bad situations for the name of wanting to be loved and wanting to be given this approval and knowing that I'm worth it. I can be worth it. They just need to give me the chance to be worth it, and trust me, I'll do everything I can do just to hear them tell me, you changed my mind, you are worth it. I just needed to hear it. And in the end, I didn't because I never heard it every single time until I left. Then I was worth it. But at the time being, I just thought that's all I needed. And so I did put myself into these terrible situations. And, it was nothing that I thought it was to be. And if you looked at me and said, "Hey, I'm a right-wing cult. Do you want to join me?" I'd be like, "You're out of your mind. Get away from me." But if you look at me and say, "You're so intelligent, I could really see where your mind is going, and I could see how you see love within everything that you've ever seen in your..." And I agree with you. And I think that all things are love. And people have seen you differently your whole life. And they don't understand you for what you really are. And people also don't understand me and what my church and what I do really is. And you may think that it's one thing, but it's really another thing. And I promise you, I'm in the same boat. I'm loved just like you. That might get me to talk to you. That might get me to think, this person has been hurt and discriminated their whole life like me. And now they've created a place of all inclusivity where there's people of all different everythings hanging out together and doing church together and loving each other and singing together and talking about these ideas. That's beautiful. And I didn't know what it truly was until I took off the glasses and looked back and said, uh-oh.
There's so much to unpack here.
Yeah.
So much. I have one correction. There's one thing to be able to take accountability for your decisions and your actions, which is what I hope that most people who are ever in abusive relationships, even if we're talking like not even abusive relationships, since this is the podcast though, in any situation, but especially in abusive relationships of any kind, at some point there's a level of accountability that you have to take. With that being said, yes, you take accountability for exposing yourself or allowing yourself or making the decision to be put in these situations and going along with it. And everyone took advantage of you. They don't get to get let off the hook just because you take accountability for your actions. And so, yes, the 19-year-old, when you were 16, you decided, you knew he was 19. You knew that at some point he got on drugs. Like, yes, you stayed. Cool, we get it. You take accountability. Proud of you for that. However, he's 19 before he meets you. He knows how old you are. He has to take accountability of taking advantage of you. The 35-year-old who was your neighbor, so it sounds like you literally grew up in the house next to him. Like you're living with your parents still at that time.
Yes.
So yes, there is no maybe he saw me running around. He saw you running around. Like he's doggone 15 years, 35, 19, 30, 16 years older than you. If he was there most of your life, he saw everything. And again, there's no reason for anyone that age to be interested in. I don't care how mentally mature a young woman is. There's no reason for any grown man to be interested in someone that young, because as you mature in life, you realize that 19, like you said, your brain isn't even fully developed yet. But 19, you make a lot of stupid decisions, most of us in the world, in that time frame. So he knew exactly what he was doing. Yes, he was taking advantage of you because, like you said, he didn't just come out and say, "Hey, I'm in a right-wing cult and I'm the leader of it." He's telling you all the things. He's presenting the thorns to you with rose petals around them and calling it beautiful. So I want to say that one, for you, they don't get to be let off the hook just because you can be accountable for what you got into and stayed into, but also for all of the people who are going to come across your episode in this conversation. You can take accountability and have been manipulated and taken advantage of at the same time.
Absolutely. I agree. I do. What they did was wrong, without a doubt. That was wrong. And although, yes, I did, I did introduce myself to the same situation, the same person in different bodies time after time, getting progressively worse because I wasn't learning my lesson. They knew what they
As
were
most of
doing.
us don't, by the way.
Yeah,
As most of us don't. Let's just say
yeah,
that. Been there,
yeah.
done that.
No, but they knew what they were doing as well. And
Yes.
predators seek prey. That is what that was. That was the same, I I didn't learn enough to be anything other than what I always was at that
Mm-hmm.
moment. So
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have the growth. I didn't act differently, even though I was, all about self-love now, or all about, treating myself good and putting myself first. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't do the inner work. I didn't change. And so I was still the same. And
Yeah.
so, what the first person who treated me terribly saw in me in the beginning, the last person saw in me as well, because it was still there.
Yeah.
And, it was just one bad relationship after the other. And the, after the cult guy, I, and it's hard because in a sense, it's like, well, yeah, he took you across the country. He spent so much money on you. He treated you well. That is also grooming. He did not treat me well. That is grooming. He said directly he wanted to show me the ropes. That is grooming. He wanted to make me something I was not. I was a young girl, and if someone gets mad at you for acting young when you were 15 years older than them, you're not acting young, you're acting your age. And they're mad at you for acting your age. And I had to learn that. And so that was really the truth. And I knew fairly quickly, it was probably about four four months of being with him where the true colors started coming out. The beliefs started being spoken, and I started seeing more of what it was and less of the fronts that they put on, and the inclusivity and everyone hanging out, everyone of everything, going on and like singing together. There were smaller groups and more conversations that made me uncomfortable, to the point where I was like, I cannot do this. I'm going to play it safe. I'm going to go to Washington State. At that point, I had a lot of anxiety going on. I got a prescription for Klonopin and I finished it 2 days earlier than I should. I got nervous. I thought maybe I have a drug problem. Maybe I'm going off my rocker. I don't know. All I know is I can't stay here. So I ended up going into rehab in Washington State. At this point, I knew it was I knew it was cultish, but I didn't know it was a cult. So I knew I had to get out of there. My body was telling me you need to leave. This isn't cool. But at the same time, I'm like, well, he took me on a road trip across the country, like I I don't know. I'm not seeing everything for what it was. But then once it all kind of came out there, I was like, okay, absolutely not. I left and I went to Washington, and it took me a minute to actually realize, like, oh, by the way, like you were in a cult. Like that was the cult. And it took people kind of being like, just so you know, like you're with a cult leader. Like that's what you were with. Like that's what you were doing. And I was like, okay, like, okay, I guess. Like it took me a minute to truly unpack that, and I didn't actually have the time to do so because right from there, I'm in rehab. I meet a whole new boat full of people, and I'm excited. Everyone's so interesting. Everyone's different. I'm in a new environment. I I'm in rehab with the babiest of all baby drug addictions. And good on me for seeing that I had a problem and wanting to take care of it immediately. Going to rehab was not the best option because I ended up getting introduced to people who did way worse things than I did and had way worse habits than I did. I was 2,500 miles or 900 miles away from my family. And I ended up, that's where at that rehab I met my main abuser, I would say. And this is where he's the one who put his hands on me and um, attempted to take my life. So that's how I got to the very, very abusive, I'd say the head of the situation. There was one after that that was very emotionally abusive, got me into very hard drugs. But this one is the head of the situation where I realized like how serious it was.
Before we dive into that, I wanna tap dance quickly on one thing that you said when you were talking about the guy who's the pastor and he takes you on the road trip and it's grooming is what it is. There's another buzzword that I want to tag onto that for people who don't understand. That's love bombing. I can show you, that's the Aladdin and Jasmine. I can show you the world trick. There's no reason for anyone that you just meet in 3 weeks to take you around the world.
Yeah.
Absolutely none. No reason for me to want to spend that kind of money on you in 3 weeks of knowing you. Period. Ever. For what? Unless this is your job and you're getting paid to travel around the world. If someone is interested in you as a potential partner, don't get on that plane. Don't get on that boat. Don't get in that truck, that RV, any of it, because all they're doing is quote unquote love bombing, grooming, showing you the gym in the one hand, and then they're going to take it away once you think you have it. I just wanted to say that really quick because those are two important words, grooming and love bombing, that are being shared now. And a lot of people might hear them and not really know what it is. That right there is the example of exactly what it is. At no point in 3 weeks or a month of you knowing me should you be flying me anywhere or taking me anywhere to show me anything of that magnitude. Matter of fact, if you want to take me somewhere, take me to your therapist so I can see how you handle your trauma. How about we start there?
Absolutely.
Let's go that route. We want to take a trip. Okay, so all that being said, yes, first of all, even before I get to your personal kudos of you patting yourself on the back for this, I just want to say, even though you've been in some sucky situations and you've continued to choose a different version of the same person over and over again, because to your point, as you are now aware, you didn't do the inner work yet. I must commend you for the courage, the confidence, and to have enough self-validation to walk away. Like you're walking away from so many. Yes, you made decisions that put you in risky situations. On a surface level, though, you had the enough self-love and enough self-respect to choose to walk away before they got to where they were trying to go. And that's absolutely amazing. So, that being said, you see that you potentially have a drug problem and you put yourself in rehab away from your family, which at the time you're not thinking about that. You're like, let me go get this. Y'all don't know how to handle this naturally. Let me go to a place that would know how to handle this.
Yeah.
And you're in there on a Similac problem, and we got people who are full blown grown on their problems.
Oh, yeah. Yes. I And I didn't know, and I felt like a poser. It's funny, but I felt like a poser because everyone would be like, "Oh, well, what's your drug of choice?" or "How long have you been doing it?" And how do I say, "Well, 2 days." I took my my one Klonopin script I ever had. I took it 2 days sooner than I finished it 2 days sooner than I should have. And before that, I drank way more than I should. I was probably more of an alcoholic than a drug addict at that time.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing was, I was with the cult thing going on, with everything going on, and always at that point in my life, if I had something like that, I was like, I need to handle this before it gets worse.
Yeah.
I see how bad things can go. I don't want it to go downhill from here. And that was in every aspect of my life. And I was like, I could go to this treatment center and get behavioral health help. Like I could work on my mental complexities. I could work on, what's going on up here. I could leave my hometown, get away from all
Mm-hmm.
this. Like I could, you know, really start new and fresh on the other side of the country and figure it out. Like I could do this. And so I did. But again, parts of me had changed, but the inner work was still not done. I was still chasing the same situation. And that's how I met my abuser there. And this is the part that is really kind of hard for me to come to terms with. So, my abuser was a car salesman. He was super charismatic when he was sober. Everyone loved him. He was so funny. He had everyone swooning over him. He was so like kind and like all of that. I mean, he got his job as a car salesman maybe a week out of treatment when we got into the 12-week program, because how
Mm-hmm.
it works is we were in residential together, then you go to detox and residential, then you go to the 12-week program. So while we were at 12-week, he got that job. He's selling cars like out the wazoo. He's making so much money.
Mm-hmm.
He's, you know, everyone thinks that he's all like cool and like we connected so well. We joked for hours about nothing. We would laugh and, you know, we just we connected. Like we felt so close. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
know anyone over there. He was one of my first friends there. And so I, you know, I was freshly out of this relationship that was all crazy. Um, I am in a new place, a new environment, and he has money. He has so much money because he's selling all these cars, letting me know how much money he's making, how he's doing so well as a car salesman, and he just got this like bonus, and like he's getting so much like incentive from all the cars, and like he's telling me all this for a reason, but I'm not thinking about it. And then, you know, he ends up I end up moving into a friend who I met at treatment's house because I graduated out of the program. He's in the grad house of the program, which is where it's like a sober living house. And so then he gets kicked out and he has nowhere to go. And so he gets kicked out for some reason. And I don't know what's going on, but we meet at a hotel and I could tell something's off. And I dealt with drug addicts before, but I never truly, I mean, I had alcoholics in my family, I knew messy drunks, but I didn't know what I was walking into. He was the worst of the worst. I get in the room, he's like grabbing my face, shoving alcohol down my throat, like he's telling me like, come on, like you need to do this. And he's just messy. He's like eating like Alfredo noodles and getting them all over the room and like just gross and messy. And I'm like, why did you do this? You were doing so good. And I don't know what I said, but he ends up punching me in the stomach. And I was scared. I was shocked. The next morning, he says something about hurting me or like I need to stay away from him or he's gonna hurt me again. He was so nasty to me. And then at lunch after his job, he has no clue what I'm talking about. And he's like, I'm so sorry. I don't remember that whatsoever. Um, we end up hanging out shortly after that. It's going to be a one-time thing. I don't really understand truly how deep this situation goes. And he ends up doing it again and becoming reckless and messy with me. He ends up getting 3 DUIs within a week. And I do not know why he wasn't put in jail. I don't know why he was not held accountable for. But by that point, I'm kind of strung in. He no longer has somewhere to stay where we're living, so we go back an hour away to his apartment to stay there. I decide I'm going to stay with him. And I had a friend who I was staying with, yes, but she had her boyfriend. And I was never alone for long. So even though I wanted to walk away from the situation, I could not physically be alone. I saw her with her boyfriend. I didn't want to be alone. I wanted my person. And unfortunately, at that time, he felt like my person. So it became a terribly, terribly abusive situation. And it was every day. I no longer was able to hold a job because every time I would work, I would get a text. So by the way, I threw all your out the window. Have fun coming home. Or, oh, I changed the locks. Or I'm gonna fall asleep with the door locked, so you can't come home. Or if I see you, I'm gonna hurt you. So I couldn't hold a job. I I mean, it was I guess the night before or something, he chased while I was at my work, he chased me, with a knife, but at that point it was like I think he flashed it at me or something, and I was scared and I wanted to leave, and I did. But then he calls me crying, saying he's so sorry. He would have never done that to me. Let's go to treatment. Let's go to treatment again. And at that point, I was with my friend back down like an hour away from where I was staying with him. And her boyfriend was in active addiction, introduced me to meth, and so I started smoking meth. And
Wait a second, Holly. Hold on. How did you feel? So you graduated out of the program.
yes,
You're now exposed to like high-end, top-notch drug users. The apologies and all of how long were you in the program?
I was in the program for like 12 weeks of the outpatient or intensive outpatient program, and then it was like 2 weeks of residential. So 14 weeks.
So you move up there, and from the time you get up there to the time that you're out is 14 weeks.
Yes.
So for 14 weeks, you're getting to know Mr. Charming, Mr.
Yes.
Got It All Together, Mr. Show Me a Good Time, Mr. This is way too easy and fun, and I haven't felt this ever.
Yes.
Then you get out, and he shows you exactly why he's in there.
Yes. And I had no clue because I was sheltered to my exposure of addiction, even though I went through what I did with when I was 16. That was nothing. That was absolutely nothing to compared to what it's actually like to be in a treatment center and to be in the full throes of addiction.
Yeah.
I had no clue.
And none of us do. I mean, nobody has a clue unless they've seen. I don't even think, even if you've seen a family member go or you've dropped a family member off over and over again, I still don't think you have a clue of actually living in that with how hard it is for other people. So you
Yeah.
come out, and because you spent the last 14 weeks seeing all of the potential, all of the, I know he can be like this. So when he
Thank
does
you.
something abusive to you and then comes back and says, I don't remember that, or I apologize, your brain immediately goes back to, you had 14 weeks of who he really is.
Thank you, because I forgot about that. That was exactly why I stayed, and I forgot about that because I felt like I can't believe I forgot about that. The reason why I truly stayed was forgetting all about like what was going on in here, even though that's important and we can return to that later. My whole I would never give up on someone I love. I want to be there for you was strengthened to the thousands because I got to see what he was really like. And now he's not like that anymore, but I know he's still in there. He's still there. And if I love him and I don't leave him and I'm there unconditionally, he can be who he was because I've seen it. I've
Mhm.
seen how he is. I know he can do that again. I know he can come back to who he really is. I just need to give him a little bit more. I need to do
Mhm.
more. Or we could go to treatment again. I was ready to do anything because I wasn't giving up on the mean, abusive asshole who beat me and threw knives at me and threw his wallet at my mouth and called me fat while I was pregnant. I'm not giving up on him. I'm giving up on Travis. I'm giving up on the man who sang ukulele songs with me in the car for 14 weeks and laughed our heads off and, you know, took me to up into the mountains and went swimming with me every weekend, like took me out into Seattle and just like hung out with me and, you know, did all the things. Like, I'm giving up on my best friend. I don't care about the person who hurt me. I care about my best friend who's trapped in there. And if I leave, I'm leaving him too. And there's a chance that he'll drink himself to death in a hotel room surrounded by nothing. And that's not fair because it's not him who's doing this. It's the evil part of him that can't stop drinking. But the truth is, and I had to find this out, was unfortunately they were the same person. And the alcohol brought out what was already in there. And that's the truth. He had an excuse. He had the ultimate excuse. Oh, that's not me. That's bad Travis. But it was still him. He just only brought it out when he drank.
It's always them. Like, people talk about how, like, they call it spirits for a reason, you know? And people talk about, are you a happy drunk? Are you a mean drunk? Are you a sleepy drunk? It's like you said, it's an excuse because the alcohol only gives your mind permission to let you act out what you've been forcing to try to maintain sober. And the burden that anyone who's in an abusive relationship feels, and I'm not talking about parent to child, I mean, it could be that too, but when you meet someone, 9 times out of 10, you don't meet the abusive version of that person.
No,
And so the hardest part about walking away for your health and safety is that I know that there's a better version of this person in there. And like you just said, if I walk away, then what if he really does kill himself? That's a whole nother burden. Like, I could have saved him. I could have all of these things. So I wanted to bring that point up because people want to know, why do you stay? And it's usually because you're holding on to the hope that you'll be able to pull out the the presentation of them that they gave you in the beginning and put it up, and that will be the victory. That will be the victorious version of them, when the truth of the matter is, like you said, both versions are them. And yes, this is not to say that alcoholism and drug addiction isn't an actual problem, illness, or disease. We're not discounting that part of it. What we are saying is, it is not your responsibility, one, to carry the burden of someone else's choices, two, to 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 offer yourself up as a sacrifice to someone else's uh bad decisions, someone else's struggles, someone else's demons. And that's what happens in so many times. I've seen so many women lose their lives because they're holding on to the hope that they can pull out the best version. And that's not your responsibility. That is not your job. Your job is to be here for who God created you to be here for. And most of the times is to be here for your kids who don't realize, like, you're not staying for the kids. You're damaging the kids more when you stay.
Oh, yeah.
So you, like you just said, I don't want to walk out on him, because I'm not walking out on Mr. Hyde. I'm walking out on Dr. Jekyll. I'm walking out on the sane, sober version. And no, you're not. You're sacrificing. When we choose to stay in an abusive relationship, we are offering ourselves up as a human sacrifice, and we're willing to be the martyr for someone else's demons. And that's not what God intended for any of our lives. So you stayed because you had 14 weeks to get to know the side of him that God wanted to shine.
Yes, absolutely. And the thing is, because it took me, we went to treatment together and we went to after I left and I ended up getting into harder things. And he calls me and he's like, I'll go to treatment again. I'll do whatever I can. I don't want to lose you. And I'm like, finally, he's coming out again. He's going to be here. I can't give up on him now. We go to treatment together. He ends up relapsing. I um I was pregnant. I found out I was pregnant with him. And from there, I he relapsed in the treatment center. He got moved to a different room from me because they found out that he relapsed and was hitting me. So I was like, screw that. We're not staying here. We're going to go somewhere else. We went to another treatment center. He relapsed again and he started hitting me again. And we got kicked out of there. And at that point, I'm like, I'm going back to Washington to stay with my friends. I'm not doing this anymore. I have them pick me up from California and drive me all the way back. That wasn't enough. I thought that was the end. I was never going to see him again. That was not the case. And so from there, I it just got worse and worse. At that point, I know I'm failing everyone who loves me. They're so disappointed because I said I was going to leave and I went back. They're fearful for my life. I'm fearful for my life. It's getting worse. He's taking all my money. He's hitting me. I'm so depressed. I have nothing to do. I sleep all day in that apartment. It's disgusting. I'm pregnant. And finally, one day, he gets so upset over something. And there's a lot that I'm glossing over because there's some parts I'm not ready to go into. And I will eventually, but I mean, just terrible things. Everything I loved, he took away from me, and it doesn't matter what it was. He took it away from me. And so that was really hard. And that night, I'm thinking about all these things. I'm crying. I'm pregnant. How could I live like this? I don't know what happened. I think I was crying on the bed. He takes me by my ankles and he pulls me off the bed onto the ground. And he runs and he grabs a knife. And I am screaming, crying. And he's saying how if I don't stop, he's gonna stab me. And by the grace of God, he is walking in front of the apartment door to block it, and I'm able to move him out of the way, like slide underneath his arm, run out into the hallway, and start screaming at the top of my lungs. To which point he walks out of the apartment room and he like puts his hands up at me like, "Oh, well, you got me now," and he walks out. I hide in the doorway and I call the cops because at that point I know if I go back in there, he's going to kill me. I know it. He's going to. And so I call the cops, and someone stays on the phone with me until they get there. The person I'm on the phone with is so nice. I'm hiding in the like stairwell, and he's like listening to me breathe to see if there's like a change in my breath or if I didn't want to talk because I was scared that, Travis would hear me. And so he's listening to me breathe and like, it's okay, keep breathing, you're doing well, like everything's okay. Let me know when they get there. I promise you, like they're 30 seconds away. Like, let me know as soon as you see them and then they'll take care of you. I promise. So they do. By that point, he's back in his apartment room. And from there, we go upstairs. I'm sobbing. He starts saying that I'm just some girlfriend who or I'm some girl he met. Um, and he doesn't even know me like that. I show them the mail I have that states that I've been staying there since, you know, months ago. They end up arresting him. And now I'm crying because I didn't know what was going to happen, but seeing them arrest him freaked me out so bad. And I ended up leaving that night and I never went back. And that was that. And there was another abusive situation after that, which because everything I went through with being pregnant, he beat me very badly while I was pregnant. And um,
With
I did
this same baby.
not the baby I have now.
Okay.
So this baby is not here. This baby did not come to term. Um, he beat me very badly and he hurt me very badly. And after that, I couldn't have the baby in many ways. And that's where that was. And it was hard. And I wanted to have the baby. I did, but I couldn't do that. And he never wanted me to have the baby. He said if I did, and the baby screamed, he would kill both of us, all these terrible things. And I always been like, why did I stay? Because I knew the real Travis wouldn't say that. And I know that, and he did. That was the real Travis. But in my mind, I didn't know that yet. And I didn't want to give up. No matter how terrible he was, I didn't think anyone deserved the fate of drinking themselves to death in a hotel room or in their apartment or wherever they are. And so I, I mean, I didn't want to give up, but after that, I left and I didn't press charges on him, and I wish I did, but that's really, I ended up falling into a terrible drug addiction after that. I met someone and told them how I was abused, and it became another predators seek prey situation. They saw how broken I was and they were like, "Oh, take this, it'll help with your pain." This is what broken people do. And so from there, just the same situation. And then I met my husband and we were both in active addiction. And he told me, you know, he said, give me 6 months because if I don't get sober in 6 months, I'm going to disappear. And it's not because of you. It's because I love you dearly. And I know that if I can't do this within 6 months, you don't deserve me. You deserve someone. You should have never been introduced to this. You should never be using. Just give me 6 months, and I promise you, I will get sober for you. We will get sober together and we will live a great life and we will be happy. I promise you that. And if I don't, I won't let myself be around you because you don't deserve that. And at that point, I'm like, what? It actually took me a long time to understand that my husband was caring for me and that he loved me and that this was a good thing. Because for a while, I was like, I don't know. I'd never had someone care like that or treat me well. So I was like, oh, whatever. But every time I did that, he was still there. And you know, even through every relationship I'd been through and all of the bad, I never took a break. I still went from relationship to relationship. So I truly do feel in my situation, I kept trying to save people. And finally, God gave me someone to save because my husband was like, not only will I get better with you, I'm going to help you too. And so we helped each other. And that's how I have my son now. And, we got sober together. And that's really that. That is how everything transpired. And through all of the terrible things I've been through and you know the I guess putting myself in those situations time after time even though I was taken advantage of terribly and not knowing better, a good result did come out of the end of me actually being able to accept love and understand, wait, it doesn't need to be chaotic or exciting or any of that. It can be like this and it can be real.
Mm-hmm. Romans 8:28, all things work together for the good of those who love God. So I love that is the mountaintop of the conversation, because you're a living example right now of the hope that I hope that this podcast gives to people who haven't made it out yet, or to family members of people who haven't made it out yet. And it's that even though you've been through so much, even though you've experienced so much hurt, so much pain, so many bad decisions, so much manipulation, so much being taken advantage of, all of these things, it doesn't make you any less valuable. You're not damaged goods. All of the lies that we let other people tell us, all of the lies that we allow ourselves to tell us with our own private thoughts, there is a way that God can take the mess ups that we've had and make them into something beautiful. Like, you're not a
Absolutely.
waste. Whoever's listening to this, you're not a waste. You're not unwanted. You're not the bottom of the barrel. You're not trash. You are still a beautiful person with a beautiful light that's just waiting to figure out where it has the privilege, the opportunity, and the freedom to shine. And so what I love, Holly, about you sharing your experiences and you being honest about how it really all stems from the trauma growing up that wasn't your fault, but that was dumped on you or that was passed down to you inadvertently. It's proof that as we take accountability for our poor decisions, we also have to realize that it started somewhere, and you're not your poor decisions, and you're not necessarily responsible for how those poor decisions came about. I just think that it's so important that you highlighted, hey, I've been seeking validation and approval. I grew up in a loving household. I grew up with present parents, and still I felt like I needed to tap dance and be a pick me for other people who hadn't handled their trauma, or who have not faced their trauma, or who are denying their trauma. And here you are now, a beautiful mother, a beautiful wife who has been able to, in retrospect, look back and see that although it was full trash that you experienced, God is still able to allow you the opportunity to be who he wanted you to be and to be loved how he wanted you to be loved, to partner and share with your child and your husband his love through them for you. And that's a blessing for you. And I hope that that's a blessing for other people, that they see that you can get out. You know, everybody's trauma is different. Everybody's experience is different, but you can get out. It doesn't have to be this way. It doesn't have to be the end. And holding on to the hope of the person that was presented to you is only damaging you. Because once you realize that they're the same person, the evil and the good, then you realize that it's a very low chance that the evil is not going to be there. Because most times they don't have the courage and the security in themselves to face that demon, which is why they let that demon out on other people.
No, absolutely. And I think that's the thing too, because I mean, that was always my fear. But I realized that even throughout that, well, if I leave, I'm giving up on the person I love. By staying, I was also enabling him. I was enabling him. And he was taking advantage of me. Absolutely. What he was doing was foul. He knew what he was doing. But by staying, I wasn't helping. I wasn't being there to catch him, like to hold him through it and help him get through. I was potentially stopping him from reaching that rock bottom that he would have needed to change his life. And in the end, I didn't care because what he does is on him. And I never deserved any of the hurt that he did to me. But it was what took me to the point of realizing I'm not helping anyone by being here. I'm not helping him. I'm not helping me. No one is being helped by me staying
At
here.
all. At all. What would be your, I mean, this whole conversation is filled with highlights and important takeaways. But if you had to wrap it all up and put it in one little gift box, what would be the biggest thing that you would want the younger version of yourself to know, or someone else who is the younger version of you now, so that they don't fall into the lies that we convince ourselves or allow other people to convince us that we need to follow in order to know what love is?
It's a good question. I think I will just keep it short with a simple little story. So, do you know why moths fly into the light?
Tell us. Ooh,
So,
I like where this is going already.
so moths fly into the light because they have something called transverse orientation, which means that with natural light sources, they have a navigation system basically, which allows them to follow the natural light sources like stars or the moon to fly straight. Artificial light sources will come in and they think it's that natural light. So they try to follow it, but it doesn't allow them to fly straight. In fact, it often allows them to fly in circles, or it gets them caught, or they lose their track. And so it's called fatal attraction. I think that a lot of the times we're a lot similar to moths than we may think. And so you may be looking for that moon or those stars to fly straight. And you might find that artificial light, and that's okay. It's not your fault that you're going in circles, because I've been in circles my whole life. That's not your fault. Something might have came in there and you think you're doing the right thing, and within your heart you believe you are. and you're trying, but you keep going in those circles. Maybe it's something else. Maybe there's something that you're not seeing. Maybe what you think is the moon or the stars is something artificial. And that's what I'll say.
Holly, if I had a mic, it's getting dropped. You hear me? I need to get a soundboard. God darn. Woo! I'm using that. I heard it here first, but I am using that.
Please do.
Girl, that's good. That's good. I have nothing to say. I do have something to say because I gotta wrap it up. But y'all heard what she said. Holly, the thing that I have to say is thank you. Thank you for your transparency. Thank you for, this is a hard conversation, but you stepped out of your feelings in your way to hopefully pave a way for someone who needed your natural light, for someone who needed to see what natural light looks like and how they can get back on the straight path, even though they've been in these circles for what may seem like their whole lives. Whoever this conversation is for, thank you for saving them.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for that. Because this was very much needed. And I don't know who they are, but we thank you. And the only thing I'm going to say after that is please continue, not like you're not going to, but keep showing up. Keep sharing your love. Keep shining your light. Y'all, another one in the books. Amazing guest, Miss Holly. Thank you so much. In the meantime, in between time, we go.